Mai reo re te whare, nā mihi o te ata ki a koutou katoa nā mātou o Puipuia. I te tuatahi ko wai ahau, ko te rangitaiki, ko ōrini, ko wainui, ko waiowa, ko waiiti, ko motu, ko hāparapara, ngā waitoto o parawhenua mea i whakatipu i ngā reanga o tōku nei whānau, ko Arihia Hoani Waka ahau. And
Mōrena koutou, he uri ahau no te tai rāwhiti, i te puahau o roto o Ngāti Porou. Ko tokatea me kōkai o ku maunga, ko kōpua roa me te hotohoto o ku awa, ko te whānau rākai roa me te aitanga mate o ku hapū. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Ka pai. So we're here today to talk about some research, and I think first what we want to do is mihi to Olo, who gave us the opportunity to kind of embark on a second part of the puzzle, and you guys will all be familiar with the research that was done the year before, and I think a lot of people that have come to our workshops this week are like, what have you done since the last time? And then all of them are probably like, who are you? Because you weren't here last time. So it's been a really cool week to kind of connect with people in this space and to talk about the second phase of the research. I think the first phase was kind of understanding the change that was needed, and then we're now in the influencing the stage or the change that we need to see space, majorly focused on freshwater farm plans and the National Objective Framework in the NPSFM. And I want to mihi to my son on the slide there, who's kind of like my northern star, I guess, so he gets to be the star of the show today on the first slide. So my work stream in this space, shared with Pohatu Waka, who is here somewhere, is the mātauranga for the North work stream. And so in our space, we did a cultural health monitoring workshop and interviews with tool developers. So we reviewed a lot of the cultural health monitoring tools, and specifically, because there's lots of reviews out there on tools, we reviewed how they worked in terms of the National Objective Framework for process and how you could use the tools. And I want to mihi to Ian Ruru, who I've seen in here somewhere, because he also was part of our tool developer interviews. So we got some really good insights from him in terms of how that might work, and that all of this stuff's going to be published out for you guys to access. We also did a wānanga mātauranga series with Che Wilson and looked at kind of the deep dive into different rohes mātauranga and how that can be implemented into, I guess, a way that it speaks back to the policy. So there were some interesting insights there. And finally, which is kind of the core or the knuckle of our research, is 3 hapū case studies with Te Aitanga Āmate, Ngāti Hokopu and Ngāti Wiriwiri. So we kind of got a good spread of different areas. And I think the cool thing about it was when you look at the case studies and the different hapū that we had Te Aitanga Āmate, who have been doing a lot of work on the awa for a long, long, long time, and kind of had this string of approaches that they've kind of taken over a number of years. We had Ngāti Hokopu, who wanted to write a freshwater management plan, but they also knew that the first thing was to bring their people home, and so they had an approach really focused on actually connecting their people back to their hapū that was then going to drive kind of their freshwater management plan. And then we had Ngāti Wiriwiri, who I guess had a really strong connection with their wai, and in terms of their hapū kind of had one mahinga kai karaua left to kind of talk through what the approaches were. So it was a really good spread of different kind of things that people were trying to achieve in that space, and I think it gave us a lot of different insights. We also had different approaches, and so the approach that I'm going to talk about today is speed dating the NOF, and so we'll get into that a little bit later, and it's basically how we did the NOF in 4 days with one of our hapū and what the insights and learnings were on that. But I'll pass to Pia to talk about her work stream, because I will ramble on forever.
The second work stream was supported landowner transition. In the first opportunity we got to research our whenua Māori landowners, we weren't able to engage them, and the iwi case studies that were part of that first phase was a key focus for them, but we never actually got to engage at the landowner level. So our main things to do were to review the freshwater regulations. Every time I said that to some of our landowners, they looked at me like they wanted to choke me. First off, it's like, what are they and how do you find them? And then when you do find them, what does that mean? This presentation is based on emerging learnings, which in research is code for we haven't finished it yet, but by March there'll be some flash versions of the content which we're finalising by next month. 30 interviews with whenua Māori trustees and landowners. So I think our most northern interviewers from Whangarei, lived in Whangarei, come down Waikato, Tairāwhiti, Kahungunu, Wairarapa. Yeah. All of our team were in Cyclone Gabriel damaged region, so that sort of took us out for a good 3 months. But we wanted to focus on whenua Māori across all the primary industries. We probably lacking, we didn't quite get the horticulture focus that we wanted. And in saying that, when this rangahau stops like next month, that doesn't mean the kaupapa stops, so we'll carry on trying to pick it up. But also through engaging our landowners, we got to hear about housing developments impacting their way in. Oh, dare I say it, all our whawhais between ourselves as whānau, ourselves as hapū, and ourselves as iwi. And then our 3 deep dives are going to be the landowner case studies. So we've got, so the rest of my team is Lara Taylor and Sam Lewis. Lara's covering Kapinga M in Te Arawa. Uncle Sam's doing Awapuni Moana from Turanganui-a-Kiwa. And I'm covering the Wharepunga Landowner Collective. And yeah, there's different strengths across the case studies. I'm really looking forward to, Kapinga M would be like the operating primary industry land use and manager, and they've got a big wetland restoration project. Awapuni Moana traditionally used to be the major wetland right in Gisborne City. And the Waipawa catchment's over allocated, Mākauri aquifer, threats of salt intrusion, and they're looking to recharge it. But Awapuni Moana's pitch is to reimagine that natural recharging approaches, and in the process to restore at least the lower reaches of the Waipawa River. So that'll be a landowner-led revisioning of the water cycle meki in Tūranga. And then the Wharepunga Landowner Collective offers a really close landowner hapū connection and how that might drive freshwater management and planning. What's next? So in research land you have your pātai nui, and then the others, sort of the prompts we need to sort of keep us on track. But everyone's covered really well the aspirations for wai, what was our tikanga, are we still able to practice some of those, lots around mahinga kai and restoration. If they have a view or understanding of te mana o te wai. And then we wanted to get into some of the tin-tacky stuff like, what does it cost to become compliant with the freshwater regulations? Pohatu Station in Te Reinga is one of our landowner interviews. They also got Te Mana o Te Wai funding through MFE, so they've actually costed every culvert, new gate, new road, bridge to meet the regulations to enable them to still farm and manage their forestry harvests. How effective are current policy instruments? So freshwater farm plans was a big thing for us, but the timing of our research is we were kind of ahead of everyone in trying to ask this, so not many had actually done it that we could contact. The big lesson there is landowners only have to give or recognise te mana o te wai as it's placed in your regional freshwater plan. And we found a lot of Māori landowners, they actually want, others around them to come back to them, or they want their lessees to actually come back to them and say, actually, this is what te mana o te wai would mean for us, or these are the freshwater aspirations we have for our whenua. So there's a lot of work, all the policy people in here, we need to clear space for that. And then what is the support required? How do we want those resources and tools to talk to our whānau, landowners, hapū and iwi. Am I next? Oh, and then we wanted to frame the learnings that we've got so far across these three themes, me ki. Connection and intergenerational relationships with our wai, growing capacity and capability. The one we really want to focus on is, and Pahia mentioned it this morning, influencing and determining freshwater management outcomes. So for all the awesome mahi that we are doing, but we're not seeing the same change or outcomes that we're wanting, there's some disconnect. We've got to connect up again to try and get those outcomes quick.
I'm watching the clock tick down over there and I'm like, whew, 20 minutes goes fast. This is the first theme of our kind of overall overarching research, and I think one of the important things to talk about here is probably what strengthening connection might look like. And so we've found that in different spaces it looks like totally different things. And Ngāti Hokopu did a really cool kaupapa. They ran a fishing competition and they had a puna hunt. What did they call it? The Great Puna Hunt. And they went looking for their puna that had dried up. And so, because they were focused on connecting whānau back in, that was kind of their approach. We've got our teaitanga ama te whānau who kind of do hikoi and hapū monitoring, and they have a matariki wānanga every year to connect back to their whenua and wai. And in our Ngāti Werewere case, we've established this thing called kaitiaki walls because one of the whānau at the back of their whare had pet tuna that they go down and feed every day, and they give them kisses and bring them out of the water. And we were like, oh my God, what about if we made this a competition and we had kaitiaki walls? And it's like, who can look after the tuna the best at the back of their property? So different kind of ways, I guess, to connect back with your wai and to make that a thing. In the first kind of theme for this research, and I have lost my clicker, there we go. The next piece is growing capacity and capability. And so we've had lots of actual epiphanies this week while we've been upstairs, and we were talking about the natural order, and this is a random conversation, but there's some research done on rats, and so around the world, if a rat has a behavioural change or adapts to something in another part of the world, that behaviour change shows up in rats in Australia. And so there's like this telepathic natural order between rats all around the world. And so we're talking about, well, what does the ripple look like in this space? If we're all doing this kind of mahi, what's the stretch of capability and capacity, and how do we have our own kind of natural order in terms of linking up what we're doing so that the impact of influencing is so strong because everyone's kind of singing from the same song sheet in their own way across the motu. And so I think that's the opportunity to have a real Māori superpower when we're talking about the ripple effect of wai across Aotearoa. And so that's the capability and capacity piece, I guess, that is really important for us here today, is how do we stay connected, what are we going to do, where are we going to go, where are we going to meet up, to make sure that we actually do have a ripple, especially when in the MPSFM space we've got like 1 year, and I think Bay of Plenty Regional Council is presenting their first draft of their regional plan back in like January, so like, we probably have like a couple of months really to get some stuff done. And then the last one is kind of influencing and determining the outcomes. And this is probably the most important part. And I'm going to get Pia to do some talk, and then I'm going to speed date the off speed date.
Okay. So just quickly, the middle photo is Gisborne District Council, our hapū monitors and team and landowners coming together to support council to upgrade our mapping on that farm, Koura Station, and Gisborne's going to give the mapping info free to landowners throughout the region for their freshwater farm plans. And then we've got them to agree with us. We want to co-design the templates for the freshwater farm plans and try and influence how Te Mano o Te Wai is worked through there. And the mapping one was, we got Jade to do a biodiversity audit for us. So that's a map of our regeneration and native forest over whenua, but that's of our land collective. So using the map as a way to get our whānau to be on the same page when we want some bigger decisions made than what we might normally be used to. And for that, we want to get into landscape scale restoration. So, yeah, just really want us to think about how all that we're doing is really going to turn into awesome outcomes for us and its influence at every level.
Sweet. Okay, so because the MPSFM is coming around really fast, we had this epiphany, Joanne Clapcott and I, when we were at a whānau, and we were thinking, she said, I think you could do the NOF pretty quickly. And I was like, oh yeah, like how quickly? And so we decided that we would try to do the NOF in 4 days with one of our hapū. And so we would go through all the steps, define te mana o te wai, set out what your ideal FMU would be, talk about what your management zone might be if your FMU is already set, define what the values are, work out what the attributes are that align with that, create the baseline state. So we did all of that. Well, attempted to do all of that. It was a bit of an experiment, and it ended up actually only being 2 days instead of 4 by the time we got through it. But it was really, really insightful, I think, in terms of where we got to after that for writing our plan, engaging the councils, and then moving into the co-design of the Waikato Regional Plan in terms of our own values for Ngāti Wiri. And I wanted to talk about what that meant for the hapū. So the outcomes for the hapū out of going through this speed dating the NOF process was that they actually had an increased awareness of the state of the awa, which was really important because I don't think that it was ever, even though the awa flowed at the back of their property, aware to them, they said that once water came to their tap, they had kind of disconnected from the fact that the wai ran at the back of their property because it was just right there for them. They had a call to action to connect and care for the awa. They had an understanding of their disconnect between their hapū practices in the awa and how they'd revive those. They talked about the revival of mahinga kai and then hapū-specific kaupapa like a STEM academy for freshwater monitoring led by their hapū. Our learnings overall of trying to do the NOF in 2 days is that it's really difficult without mahinga kai experts and people that are actually out monitoring and have the hands that speak for what they do, because you can't really land on anything if you're trying to work out what the issues are and what the values are unless you're actually out in the awa. We really needed more iwi historians. We require a freshwater scientist to actually get through some of that stuff, and I want to meet to Joe for being there for us because that was really helpful. You need to be supported by someone who's familiar with the policy and particularly the NOF space because it'll help you to speed things up and get things moving. And then you kind of need a strong team to complete your outputs. And so this is the start of our outputs up on the screen here, which is the beginning of Ngāti Wiri's freshwater management plan and a little bit around baseline states and creating baseline states from what you observe. And so one of the biggest issues for us was stock access. When we were out walking the awa, there were 20 cows just standing in the awa, shitting in the awa. So, if that's not a sign that you've got major E. coli problems, there's kind of nothing greater than that. And then the last piece that you really need is once you've finished all this mahi, you need someone to go in and bat for you. And that's probably the most important piece, is the influencing space. And so we've been really fortunate with the Waikato Regional Council to start talking about what management zones might look like for mahinga kai so that they're informed specifically by each hapū's individual landscape. And so for us, even though koura is not a threatened species, to Ngāti Wiri, it's a threatened species because our kaumātua said all he wants to know is that before he dies, he'll eat a koura from his awa. That's his only thing that he wants. So that's a kind of take on that, I guess. And the last point that I want to make, because I need to move out of the way so that Pia can finish, is, and I want to mihi to the whānau from the Piki Environmental Society, because we had a kōrero yesterday and they were talking about kākahi and how the E. coli level needed to be 14 per 100 mils in order for their kākahi to thrive in, their estuaries. And so to me, that was like, oh my God, that means that your freshwater value is mahinga kai, and then your attribute is E. coli, and then your limit just needs to be 14, and we just need to find a freshwater scientist that can give the evidence that that would happen, and then we've actually run the NOF. So all of you guys that are out there monitoring, bring these gems in and we'll go write some freshwater management plans. And we're upstairs at morning tea, and that's all from me.
Arihia just heard about the NOF like about 6 months ago, I tell you. We'll skip, we're already in the red, but we want to mihi to everyone who's been involved with the research so far. And then my crew is going to come up and sing us a waiata, but we just want to put this pātai out to you fellas. Yeah, what is the next step or decision or action you will take after this hui to influence freshwater outcomes for the better? Okay. E rui, e rui, e rui, o raru, o raru, o raru. Tēnei te tangi ka tū taki, taki, e tangi a te kihi, kihi, i pēnei ana, i ana. Tere te ke, he maranga i e. Tangi a te poraka, i pēnei ana, i ana. E kui, o kaka he maranga i e. E rui, e rui, e rui. O raru, o raru, o raru. Tēnei te tangi ka tū taki, taki. E